On today's Locked On NBA Game Nights, 4 games in the NBA, with one delivering above the rest. Minnesota and Memphis went toe to toe, but the Pistons keep on winning, and two controversial teams picked up big wins.
When that final buzzer rings, you know it's time for Locked On NBA Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. It's the true NBA fans' one stop for all the action. Every game, every night. It's Locked On NBA Game Night. Tipping off now.
Let's get it going on the Locked On NBA Game Nights podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Rylan, Stiles, host of Locked On Thunder. With me here is Gavin, Schall, host of Locked On Knicks, and we're here to break down this Saturday night action around the NBA on a slate that continued to dwindle. Obviously, with the LA situation, our hearts go out to them and want to support them any way that they can. The NBA had to cancel the 2 games in LA, but then this morning they also had to cancel the game in Atlanta with the snowy conditions there. So ends up only being 4 games, but Gavin, there's never a bad day that NBA basketball is on.
No, this was a fun one, and we clearly have to start with Memphis, Minnesota. You go back to what was it 2021 when they had that absolutely unhinged first round series? Like I clear my schedule when these two teams play, and it didn't disappoint tonight. A thrilling 127-125 win for the Memphis Grizzlies. Ja Morant had just 12 points, but I mean, pretty much all of them seemed to come down the stretch. 6 of his 12 in the fourth quarter. The shot making from him down the stretch of this game and kind of outdueling Anthony Edwards, at least when it mattered most. And the Grizzlies just kept going to the same set, like this uneven stagger screen where they'd have Jalen Wells, the rookie, set like an initial high screen for Ja to kind of just clip Edwards and slow him down. And then you'd have Brandon Clark at that left wing, just kind of lingering there. And the last time they ran this to tie it at 125 each, Clark just takes this early slip and it fools Ant because he was expecting to run right into Clark, crash into him. He kind of stopped. Morant gets a step, and when Ja Morant gets a step, you're not catching up. Goes right at Rudy Gobert, obviously one of the best shot blockers on planet Earth. Double pump lay, and then the final shot that gave them the 2-point win might have been even nastier. I mean, just that like twirling, like one-handed baseline push shot. I always find, I mean, Ja's so ridiculous, right? Because you have the speed, the handle, the athleticism at the rim, but the touch on like it is so rare you get that kind of crazy athleticism and also his level of touch. And that's what makes him such a unique talent when he's at his best, like a top 10 to 12 player in the NBA. Great finish from him. JJJ had 33 in this one, 2 threes in the fourth quarter. Crazy shot to beat the second quarter buzzer. And they beat a Wolves team, Rylan, that came in having won 3 straight, seemingly playing their best basketball after a starting lineup change. And I thought Minnesota did a lot of things well in this game, and it's a testament to Memphis that they were still able to pull off this win.
Yeah, it's great to see Ja back. Obviously, he returned officially against Houston, but having not played in the new year until then, these are his first 2 games back, and it just shows you how good Memphis is going to continue to be this year as long as they continue to get healthy. Because you mentioned how these 2 teams always play very close, and that's true. And it's none truer than this, where both defenses played really well. Like I look at the box score. And Ja's box score and Ant's box score is not all that inspiring. It's inefficient, and it's not like some of their banner games. But I don't believe, like having watched it, that those 2 guys played poorly. I thought that these 2 teams played excellent defense. That they got those guys in uncomfortable spots, which is tough to do. And these 2 teams played a really good game that had 25 lead changes, 22 ties, and neither team led by more than 6. That's how close the margins were all game long. And you mentioned Jaren Jackson, 33 points, but perhaps the play of the game was what, of course, the Anthony Edwards attempt at the end, which was contested by Brandon Clark. And I think that's another sign whenever you're looking at Memphis and we're trying to figure out now, creeping into the halfway point of the season, which teams are contenders, pretenders, and all that other, jargon that we talk about. I really like this Memphis team because of their versatility, because you can throw this kind of weird junk ball with Zach Edey, who's played well, who has this mammoth size. But then on the blink of an eye, like once you think you have that figured out, they can just throw in Brandon Clark, who's a more, in my opinion, versatile defender who can go defend on an island, and they can kind of defend you in a multitude of ways, where if it's Edey and Jaren Jackson Jr. together, you've got to deal with all that length and size, and Jaren Jackson Jr. can roam around while Edey plays drop and protects the rim. And then when Brandon Clark's in the game, you can play a really switchable style, so you can never get comfortable or into a rhythm offensively against Memphis. Then we know they have the top end talent with Ja Morant. But even a guy like Desmond Bane, who can kill you at transition threes, who can kill you from beyond the arc in the half court. He went for 21 points tonight, 4 for 8 from 3. I love this Memphis team, but I do believe that you hit the right note on Minnesota playing their best basketball, and they did make that crucial change, putting Dante DiVincenzo in the starting 5 with Mike Conley off the bench. It didn't necessarily help, Mike Conley perform better stat-wise. He went 1 for 4 tonight, but it just felt like it tied their team together, because while Conley didn't score the ball particularly well, it just seemed from watching them previous to this change and watching them now that while the box score doesn't show it, their secondary unit had more rhythm, had more poise than it typically had, just having that steady presence of Conley while maximizing their starting lineup with DiVincenzo in there next to Ant and next to their top guys. So I do like that change, and I do think that this could be one that gets Memphis kind of trending, Minnesota trending in the right direction.
Yeah, I'll say final note on Memphis before we fully move on to Minnesota. I think the rest of the season is just about, one getting healthy. They've been, I think, the second most injured team in the entire NBA, which makes it stunning that they're still just constantly like neck and neck with the Rockets for that race for the 2 seed in the West. But the rest of the season is just getting healthy and then figuring out who that 5th guy is. And this was a conversation on Locked On Grizzlies this week, which everyone should go subscribe to, right? You have the big 3, right? You have Bane, you have Ja, you have JJJ. Edey seems like he is going to be a starter, if not always the closer, because he just gives him that clear-cut identity with his screening and his offensive rebounding, and of course his defensive rebounding that just kind of establishes a baseline for them. But then who's the 5th guy, right? It could be Vince Williams, it could be Marcus Smart, it could be Jalen Wells, Gigi Jackson, Santi Aldama, Jake LaRavia. Like there's no other team in the NBA with just the sheer depth of options that the Grizzlies have there. I know the Locked On Grizzlies guys think it's eventually going to be Vince Williams with his ability to shoot, play make, and play some defense. But I'm just so fascinated as this team continues to just be extremely good while not even being close to a finished product. And this sounds weird for a team that's been in the mix for a couple years now, but I would be fine with them not making a move this deadline. Like I kind of just want them to solve the roster they have, unless maybe like they can go and get Jimmy Butler, which does not seem likely. But anyways, to answer your actual question, I love the shift for Minnesota, even though I know Ben Beacon talked about in that starting lineup did not perform particularly well when it was used in the past, but he in his last episode highlighted just so many different upsides to this. I think the single biggest thing is Conley was so clearly uncomfortable being like the 3rd ball handler, and Julius Randle like demands a lot more time on the ball than Karl Anthony Towns did. And Conley just wasn't really additive as that 3rd guy. While with the 2nd unit, not only does he get the ball in his hands more, but he also has a lot more space to operate with. So that's clearly going to help him, like being away from that double big of Randle and Gobert. DiVincenzo, the opposite effect, right? He is someone who probably shouldn't have too much ball handling responsibility, and he was a little overtaxed in that role in the 2nd unit. And you can see how he's freed up to be more similar to how he was used on the Knicks, which is just a dynamic movement shooter. And I thought the chemistry between him and Randle in this game was so impressive. Like, what was it, like the first bucket of the game, or just toss it to Randle, sprint into a handoff, drive hard to the rim, draw Edey up, sling it to Gobert for a lob, and then even just like to get into his 3-point shot, right? Like you had Randle dribbling right side of the arc to the left side of the arc, hand off to DiVincenzo, sprinting the opposite direction, shakes Morant, drops him, hits a step back 3. And this is like in the games I've watched Minnesota this year, this is, I think, one of the more confident scoring performances I've seen from DiVincenzo. And I think it's because being in that starting lineup allows him to be who he is. 27 points, 10 rebounds, 7 assists, 9 of 14 from the field, 6 threes, perfect on 3 free throws. Like he was probably their best overall offensive player in this game. And that's saying a lot, because Julius Randle, I thought had a really good game with those 8 assists, despite the 4 turnovers. He was consistently super unselfish. Naz Reid, 19 points on 10 shots in 30 minutes. Jaden McDaniels shot the heck out of the basketball, 3 for 4. I mean, Minnesota makes 17 threes, and they still lose because Anthony Edwards, who's in the midst of, to your point, one of the best 3-point shooting seasons in NBA history this year, goes 0 for 5, 4 for 13 overall. Can't quite close it out. But even on, to your point, on a bad statistical night for Man, I liked a lot of what we saw from him getting downhill, getting all the way to the rim. Great win for the Grizzlies, though, and what was clearly the defining day of, to your point, a shallow slate in the NBA.
Big time win from Memphis, and Detroit keeps it rolling. We'll talk about that and more coming up. But first, I want to say right now, but good friends over at Prize Picks, go check out Prize Picks today, because basketball season is, of course, heating up, and there's no better way to get real money action while watching your favorite NBA stars than with Prize Picks. Whether you're a diehard fan or just love some friendly competition, Prize Picks makes it easy to turn your basketball knowledge into cash. Here's how it works. You pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your money. Think LeBron James is going to drop 30 points tonight? Well, maybe you think that Luka is going to have more than 8 assists. Prize Picks lets you make your predictions and put your money where your mouth is in just 60 seconds. I've been using Prize Picks all season long, and let me tell you, it's addictive. It's very fun. And last week, I picked over on SGA points in the Garden, and he got there in just 3 quarters. No need to sweat on that. And that's what you can do with Prize Picks. The Prize Picks flex play option also helps you out, because even if one of the picks does not hit, boom, you can still double your money with their flex picks. But once you hit, you get the money fast, sometimes as quick as 15 minutes. It's great to go check them out today at Prize Picks and see how the game works yourself by going and downloading the app today. It's the perfect time to join, because whenever you use the code LOCKEDONNBA, you get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. That's right, no need to win. Just play your first $5 lineup, and the bonus there is guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game. We're back on Locked On NBA Game Nights. I'm Rylan Stiles, host of Locked On Thunder. That's Gavin Schall, host of Locked On Knicks. And Gavin, we went from Memphis and Minnesota to Toronto and Detroit in Little Caesars Arena, where the Pistons keep on winning 123-114. Cade Cunningham, he should be an all-star this year. I think he's just played electric basketball. Not exactly a hot take, but in this game, 22 points, 10 rebounds, 17 assists. The triple-double from him, 1 steal, 2 blocks on the defensive end. Did have the 8 turnovers, but he shot 47% from the floor, 2 for 4 from 3, and continues to show that he's making a leap, while Toronto continues to be what I would consider a perfect tanking team. They've made no bones about what their goal is this year, but you're watching this game, it was still a fun game to watch. You still had players that you were very, very, very interested in. I love all their young guys like a Jamal Shad, and I love, Jacoby Walter, who got 3 minutes in garbage time at the very end, but they still have Scotty Barnes, of course, doing it, RJ Barrett doing it, Grady Dick in this game, and Grady Dick this whole season is taking a step forward. He's 4 for 8 tonight from 3, and whenever they're fully healthy and fully playing, their guys like Mogbo's fun to watch. Like the Raptors are fun to watch despite their record, but Detroit, I think, is the perfect step forward for them. I know that there's worry and concerns from Locked On Pistons about like losing the pick, and if you make the play-in and then you survive the play-in, you lose your pick because it's lottery protected. I will say, if you make the play-in and lose the play-in, you still get a lottery pick, and you can still have a chance at having it. For example, the Clippers went to the play-in and lost the play-in and got the 12th pick handed to the Thunder, and it's how they got J-Dub. But aside from that, there's still progress for Detroit. So to boil it all down, my biggest takeaway from watching this Pistons team, and it came true tonight as well, is that I think that they did a perfect job of bringing in veteran players who complement their young guys and relied on their young guys to take a step. Because without those young guys taking a step, like Azar Thompson playing really well, and we already mentioned Cade Cunningham, they wouldn't be in this position. But because they did take a step, they now have the tools around them to thrive from it. And you saw that you had a huge game, 27 points from Tim Hardaway Jr., and you had Malik Beasley, who is just always in the right spots as a safety valve and a drive and kick option for these Pistons. He went 4 for 5 from 3. I just really like this Pistons team as taking a step forward. Even Tobias Harris had another good game for Detroit. What have you made of this game and also the Pistons in general?
All right, I'm just going to throw you a quick question back. You say Cade's a surefire all-star. I've been saying the same thing for weeks, but when I watch him play these last 2 weeks, and then I look at the numbers and I say, is that underselling the season Cade Cunningham has had? And is he actually not just an all-star, but a borderline all-NBA guy and maybe in the running for that elusive 5th spot on the MVP ballot? Obviously, Shea and Jokic, I would say, are in their own tier. Giannis is in the next tier, way above everyone else. And then you have Wemby and Tatum, I think, are the consensus 4-5. Is it totally ridiculous to throw out there that Cade Cunningham should maybe be approaching? I'd put him in probably the 6th spot right now. But where, like, if you want to look at the truest definition of MVP, where would this Detroit team be without Cade Cunningham? I would argue that they would be the single worst team in the NBA right now without Cade Cunningham, or maybe battling the Wizards and it's somehow the Pelicans now for that honor. And instead, they're in 8th place. They've won 6 of their last 8. They are a game and a half out of 4th in the East with everything that Giannis has on his roster, at least on paper, relative to what Cade has on his roster in Detroit. 24 points, 9 assists, 6 rebounds, really good efficiency. And like, just aesthetically, like, if we can just isolate this to the eye test, I know what the kids would call it, ethical hooping. Like, his like every single time you watch the guy, like it is just like for people who fetishize like 90s basketball and no threes, like he can obviously shoot from distance, but his ability as a mid-post player is borderline like unparalleled. Like, I know you guys
Shea and
some of
Cade.
this, but it's like borderline unparalleled in the NBA right now. Like, his mid-post, like, he had one where he was double teamed by, I think it was Jacoby Walker and Kelly Olynyk, and he just bumps into Walker, reverse spin through both of them, step through into a flip shot. And I thought I was in a time machine watching like a young Kobe Bryant is the one guy I'd say. I know, like, it's kind of similar to Tatum in some ways, but then he also has like that LeBron, Luka, like top of the key, big manipulator, where like there was this play in the 4th quarter where it was Stewart was sealing up, Beef Stew was sealing up Emmanuel quickly. And you could see Toronto gearing up to help. And to ensure they don't do that, he looks to the opposite wing. Then he drives middle. And at this point, everyone's focused on him. Hard, like, behind the back, step back to like freeze the defense. And then he lofts it in. And just his sense of timing and knowing when to throw a pass, how to keep a defense in their place. And over again, like, Toronto forced the ball out of his hands down the stretch, and he found the right guy and got them easy buckets. And it just reminds me of, like, this is a crazy name to throw out there, but like, I don't want to say LeBron because he's just not even in the same universe of an athlete, but just in terms of like not having great teammates and or at least not incredible teammates and really elevating them. Like, I just think the guy's having a special season, and maybe it's underappreciated across the board.
Yeah, and I think that you look at it, first of all, the 90s basketball stuff. Shea is the one that's doing it to the point where, like, if you're someone who thinks that Kobe's the best player of all time, Shea has to be your favorite player to watch right now, because Shea is doing exactly what you love. And then it's Cade, it's Tatum. Like, there's some guys that do it, but it's really Shea at the very poster child of like throwback basketball, and he's right there. And that's another comparison of, like, I'm not saying he's like Shea, but look back at that 5th MVP spot, and it sounds crazy whenever the MVP discussion is always centered around Shea and Jokic, but it is true that it does mean a lot to establish yourself as just being a ballot guy on MVP. And the fifth place in MVP 2 years ago was SGA. Whenever he drug the Thunder to the play-in tournament, he didn't do anything like incredible in terms of winning. He got to the play-in tournament and won a 9-10 game in New Orleans. Like, that was cool. And he got there, if people don't remember, by the Mavericks bowing out and wanted to keep their pick away from you in New York. They just quit on the season for 2 days, and that got the Thunder.
I do remember. Thanks, Rylan.
and that was enough for the Thunder to see SGA be 5th in MVP. And then the next year he's runner up, and then this year he could be the front runner for the award. Like, I think that Cade will get there simply because too, like, Luka Doncic, he should be in that MVP discussion, which then shifts everybody down to where we do have a top 5 if he's that missing piece. But he's going to miss too many games. He won't be on the ballot. You can't vote for him. He's just not eligible. So that frees up a spot there. It also frees up a spot on the All-NBA teams. So I do think that Cade is having that run, and especially to restore something in Detroit that, like, literally a year ago, they were not only the laughingstock of the NBA, but like they transcended sports culture with their long losing streak last year. It was just a running joke with their Wingstop promotion and things like that. And in a year's time, they're right here in the play-in and battling in the East. And I think that they can survive a play-in tournament, and that's a massive step for what the Pistons are accustomed to. And it's all derivative from Cade Cunningham. So I do think that he would deserve MVP votes. And I think that he could, if it's all said and done and it continues to trend this way, garner enough votes to place, in the top 5.
Yeah, I'm with you, and I want to quickly before we wrap up give credit to the ancillary Pistons. I don't want to make it seem like this is Cade and the Cadettes. I mean, you said it, the combined shooting of Hardaway and Beasley having a career year in this game. What did they go? A combined 11 for 13 from 3. Like, that's just a crazy shooting performance from those two guys. Jalen Duren, I think after a slow start, has been playing much better basketball. And I know Ku Kahil, when Jaden Ivey went down, the big concern was, all right, like, he was kind of the one other ball handler on this team. And the way they're just kind of scraping out minutes with guys like Simone Fontecchio providing more off the dribble. He had 9 points in this one. Marcus Sasser, 2 big, like only 11 minutes, but just 2 big shots to end the fourth quarter is there. Maybe poor man's version of a Cam Thomas type guy who's just really comfortable coming in and getting buckets. He had a big 3, big mid-range jumper, just to keep them in control. But it kind of starts with Cade. It kind of ends with Cade. I think the biggest thing going forward for them, and this is a big ask, but if Asar Thompson could develop a jump shot to the point that he was even like a 32% 3-point shooter on some volume, I think that would be a game changer, because he's just such a wrecking ball of a defender and a freak athlete on the other end of the floor. That would elevate them. But right now they're in a great position to your point, go ahead, make the playoffs. And I think after the last 5, it's been almost 20 years in Detroit where they've been kind of aimless. Like that would just be huge. And it's so clear they have a future, and that future is Cade Cunningham. And like, they have to figure out who they're going to keep, who they're going to trade away eventually. But just having that star, as you know, with SGA, like, that's the first step, and everything flows from there.
Yeah, everything trickles down from a guy like Cade Cunningham. Coming up, we end the night with Miami and Portland and Utah and Phoenix. But first, I want to say right now, but our friends over at FanDuel, go check out FanDuel today, because from upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. The FanDuel app gives you everything you need for live bets and can make same-game parlays and so much more. You can go visit them right now at FanDuel.com. And if you only like the NBA, no worries. They have NBA action, including this afternoon's Thunder-Wizards game, where the Thunder are 13.5-point favorites in the nation's capital. With how good the Thunder are, you probably should still hammer that line, even though it is inflated. So go visit FanDuel.com right now and join today and get started with $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make the playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. We're back on Locked On NBA Game Night. I'm Rylan Stiles, and that's Gavin Schall. I'm on Locked On Thunder. He's on Locked On Knicks. And we have 2 more games to get through in this one. The Miami Heat rout the Trailblazers, and really they blew them out twice, because like the first half, they grew this cushion that you thought, okay, now it's time to coast. And then the Blazers came back in the third quarter, made it a little bit interesting. They dipped that lead all the way down from 20 down to single digits, and then the Heat blew them promptly out once more in a game that ultimately only saw 4 ties and 2 lead changes all night. But Tyler Hero leads the way with 32, and Bam Adebayo, who's been under the microscope this season, and there's been a lot of talk about his play and his lack of play. He had 13 and 11 with 46% shooting from the floor. So what did you make of this win for Miami, and what have you made of Bam Adebayo's season?
Yeah, so third straight in a row for the Heat. Before we get to Bam, wanted to say I thought just another amazing Tyler Hero game. I've not, I think, relative to consensus, been the biggest fan of him in the past, and I think he's proven, not that anyone cares, me wrong in my own head this year. Just, I mean, the versatility of scoring and the way the ball was popping around, I think really highlight. It was sort of a microcosm of everything he did right this season. What he finished with 6 or 7 threes, but just all coming in so many different ways. Like him moving off the ball. Like, one of my favorite was him driving baseline, slinging to Nikola Jovic, and then just circling back, relocating to the right corner. And I know on Locked On Heat, they've kind of been fond of saying like he's having a mini Steph season. That was just such a Steph moment. It kind of caught my eye. And then the single biggest shot of this game when Portland they cut it to 68-64 right after being down by 20 in the first half. Then made a later run to make it 100-93 after it was 100-85. And Hero just off of dribble handoff from Bam, pulls off, bangs like a 30-footer, and that was good night, right? Portland never really had a push after that. But Bam Adebayo, I'm with you that this game really stood out to me just because he was aggressive. And so often when I've watched him this year, he's just looked frustrated, like he's not getting enough help defensively, like he's not being trusted, despite the fact that Jimmy's been a hit or miss presence. And you would think not in terms of skill that he would become their primary option on offense, just because that's not his game, and that is Tyler Hero's game. But you would think in some ways he would be involved in late game offense, just because like that's sort of his right at this point with Jimmy stepping down as leader of this team. Bam is the guy who takes on the weight of carrying on Heat culture and Heat elitism, as Knicks fans like myself would probably phrase it. But just some big shots, like that catch and shoot three off the dribble, hitting the foul line jumper. I continue to be really impressed with him and Duncan Robinson in the two-man game. Like Duncan, sneakily, for people who don't watch the Heat a lot, has become a lot more than just a great shooter, like really dynamic as a pick and roll threat. He had a great one where he got Klingon and Klingon just blots out the sun most of the time, but was able to lean away and throw a lob over the top to Bam, who could just tip it in. Continues to play all-world defense. So really impressive two-way effort from Bam. And I just thought the Heat as a whole now, and like on the brink of Jimmy Butler maybe coming back and ruining the good vibes, 3-game winning streak. Jaime Jaquez is playing his best basketball this season. So it just sort of feels like they found a really good flow. Again, a game against a team like Portland, even though Portland's playing relatively well right now, can certainly inflate things. And you have those nights where everything's clicking and the ball movement looks great because you're constantly beating your matchup. You're constantly creating an advantage. In those nights, it's easy to be unselfish. It's easy to pass the ball. It's easy to shoot well. They've got some bigger wins the last couple of games. We'll see if they can continue when Jimmy comes back, and more so when the competition picks up.
So I think that was a win that, of course, Miami needed regardless of situation because it was against the Portland Trailblazers. And they got it, and Tyler Hero was awesome. And you move on to another win of a team that's been in a bit of a disarray, bit of turmoil, if you will, just like Miami has, was Phoenix playing a lesser team in Utah. And Phoenix also got the win at home over the Jazz, 114-106. Devin Booker had 34 points. The Jazz kind of executed this perfectly. They played a close game. They saw a double-double from Walker Kessler. They saw Cody Williams off the bench have his best game as an NBA player. While it's a low bar to clear, he did have 13 points on 50% shooting, which was nice from him. Of course, Lauri Markkanen did his thing with 24 points, but ultimately you still lose. You still get a big loss on the day where Cooper Flagg had a big night, scoring 42 for the Blue Devils. And the Suns got on the winning side with all of their lineup changes, with the switching up of the starting five, having Bradley Beal come off the bench, which has been successful to this point, and he's had a very successful attitude about it. It just seems so over for Nurkic right now with him not playing, literally not playing. But what did you make of the Suns getting this win?
Yeah, I mean, three in a row now, or sorry, 3 of their last 4 now for Phoenix since moving Beal to the bench. I was there I'm losing track of time, Rylan, but it was Thursday night where Beal, at least the home media, gave his first comments on coming off the bench, and it was a weird vibe in the sense that he was very insistent on conveying that he was being a good soldier. And based on everything I understand about the situation, he's been an exceptionally good soldier. And someone asked him, well, what did you say when Bud told you you're coming off the bench? And he said, nothing. Like, there's no point arguing. There's no point being a jerk about it. Like Bud's going to do what he wants. So I have to accept it. And I have to make the most of it. He has been extremely supportive of Ryan Dunn, the rookie who took his starting spot, and like just constantly kind of giving him affirmation and giving him like extra bits of attention to like shore him up. And I think just convey like, hey, this isn't on you. I'm rooting for you. I'm in your corner. I want you to play well, which is all a real testament to Bradley Beal, the person. And the question is just, does it work on the court? And for now, it does look like it's working. Like, I think there's a lot of merit to breaking them up and just allowing Devin Booker and Kevin Durant to focus on being Devin Booker and Kevin Durant versus having that constant like nagging sense of Brad hasn't taken a shot in 4 minutes. And this is a guy who's used to having the ball in his hands a lot and figuring out ways to leverage all three of those guys at the same time. And look, they're still playing a lot of minutes together, right? Bradley Beal's been averaging over 30, but I think it's freed up Kade and Book to be Kade and Book is coming off 2 of his best games of the season. I thought he was masterful on Thursday against the Hawks, just like dragging out double teams and like throwing cross-court skip passes and creating easy shot after easy shot for other guys. I mean, it was 3 straight games for him or 2 straight games for him with over 10 assists. And in this game, he really, like as Utah started blitzing him later, but early in the game, we were giving him a little less attention, got off with his shot, 6 of 12 from 3, 34 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, just an incredibly dynamic scoring performance from Devin Booker and him and Kevin Durant. Like, I think this was the appeal for KD initially to play with Kyrie and initially to play with Book. He wanted to find guys that made the game look as easy as he does. And that is absolutely Devin Booker at his best, where it looks like there's no one else on the court. And these are like, he'll just rise up and it's as if like he's at a shoot around. And that was maybe my biggest impression of this entire game, that over and over again, he got to his spots and converted. Same deal with Kevin Durant, who, as good as Cody Williams was on offense, like KD was absolutely cooking him and just giving him a welcome to the NBA moment on the other end of the floor. Quiet night for Beal, but someone like Grayson Allen continues to really step up, maybe empowered by the lineup change. Like, he had a one-man 9-0 run after the Jazz had cut it to 91-88 to basically seal this game. Rylan, he's now shooting 18 of 30 this month from 360%. So when the Suns make shots, they're a very good team. It's a simple formula for them.
Yeah, making shots always better than missing them. That's another night of the association here on Locked On NBA Game Night. Gavin, this has been a lot of fun, as it is every week. Go find him, Locked On Knicks. You can find me, Locked On Thunder. And until next time, be good and be good to one another.